Hey guys, it's Ian here with HobbiesofaMan. Once again, and today we're doing another manga review. Today we're looking at arc number 6, or maybe 7, I can't remember the number that I used last time, of Adam the Beginning. And so since it's been a while, I'll give you all the book facts here. So Adam the Beginning is a retelling slash prequel slash reimagining, and I have to say all three of those because that's exactly what it is, of the Astro Boy story, right? And so it's a really confusing concept, you know, in theory. Like, it sounds like it's very weird, but you basically can just, you know, admit that Astro Boy happened, realize that this is a new version of that story, and then just start over, right? It's kind of like how a new run of a comic book might, of like a comic book character like Spider-Man might restart, right? So kind of same concept. It does eventually tie in with the original Astro Boy, but very vaguely. And it's based on Osuma Tezuka's original ideas. It's worked by Masumi Yuki, who does most of the storytelling aspect. The illustrations are done by Tetsura Kazahara. The editor here is Makoto Tezuka, who is, I think he's Tezuka's grandson. It might be his son, I can't remember off the top of my head. And of course, this is done in collaboration with Tezuka Productions, which is the Tezuka family's company that relates to all of Tezuka's stuff, right? So yeah, this is published by Panini Manga in Mexico. As you guys can see, these are the Mexican editions. However, it is published here in the States via Titan's collaboration with Robo Manga. I can't remember the name of them. They have like a little robot symbol, but basically Titan publishes it here in the States and in Europe, I think, in England as well. So you can read it in English. I think it's up to this volume right now, but I have up to volume 17 because that's everything that's been out in Mexico so far. It is still an ongoing series, and I think it's just been kind of slow because it takes a long time to make these chapters, right? So yeah, the demographic here is adult or seinen, and the adaptation only covers the first 3 volumes of the manga, but it does exist and you can watch it. I think it's on Amazon Prime or Apple TV, at least here in the States. I can't remember which one it's on, but it's available online. And the rating for this arc is a 4 out of 5. I think it's pretty good, but it's not really all that special. This is a transition arc. It's chapters 34, 35, and 36. And because there is no official arc list for this series, I'm coming up with names and arc divisions myself, right? So this is the post-World Robot Battling competition arc. And it's covered in the second half of Volume 7, as you guys can see right there, starting here. And it goes into the first chapter of Volume 8, ending right before the color pages here for chapter 37. So there you go. And the story, the premise here is basically that we finish off with the fallout of the World Robot Battling competition, which is that Uran managed to show off her battle abilities. She caused a awakening in a bunch of robots, and all of these robots went crazy when they realized what was happening, and they created basically this like robot massacre. So we introduced a new character to tie up loose ends, and then we start the next mystery by introducing this idea of a boy from the future, a boy robot from the future, which of course is Astro Boy. So yeah, that's basically the premise here. The plot line, very specifically and full of spoilers, is Uchinamizu is basically analyzing the data from the ending of the World Robot Battle competition. He's asking Adam and Uran, you know, hey, can you guys explain this to me? Like, he doesn't understand, because even though humans have a very good way of communicating, which is with their voice, robots can't do that. They don't have actual voices. And so when they communicate with each other, it's through a bunch of stuff all at the same time. And so a communication system between robots has so much data that humans can't really understand it, and it doesn't have understandable, discernible like portions, right? And so he can't actually decode the conversation that was happening. And so he asked Adam and Uran to simplify the conversation, and well, they really can't, but they try their best. And basically, Adam explains to Uchinamizu, hey, when I was talking to Mars at the end of the story, or at the end of the World Robot Competition, what I did was create this virtual room between our linkage, right? Between their communication bandwidth, or whatever you want to call it. And in this virtual room, they interacted the same way people would do. And so that's what's codified there. And it's really odd. It doesn't really make too much sense. It doesn't feel scientific, but at the same time, it's kind of like a chat room, but with like extra steps, right? And so it's very interesting to look at this. But of course, Uchinamizu can't really understand it. And so he kind of just like lets it go. He's like, okay, cool, no worries. I like that you guys can communicate with each other in a way that is completely and wholly unique to robots. It makes it special because it makes them more likely to be like actual sentient beings and not just machines, right? Later, we see that Makoto shows up, and this is when Umataro realizes that Lolo, Dr. Lolo, looks a lot like Makoto, and he's almost at the cusp of understanding what's going on, but because he's stupid as hell, he blows her off. He decides that they are not related at all. It's just Makoto being lucky, and they move on. Later, we get to see that Uchinamizu goes to Lab 1 to apologize. Actually, I think he meets them in the cafeteria while they're buying lunch. At Lab 7, we see that Uchinamizu is sad. He has no one to talk to about the reality of his life now, which is not really true because Umataro's there. The thing is that Umataro doesn't really entertain banal conversations about feelings all that much. He's a very serious, kind of stoic kind of guy. And so he doesn't really have the necessary empathy necessary for Uchinamizu to talk to him about this stuff, right? And so he's kind of sad that no one will listen. A106 decides to try his best, and in order to get him to interact with him, he tells him about his conversation with Ivan, the robot from like the third arc of the story, and they come up with this idea that there was a few sentences or a few vowel sounds that were made, vocalizations that were made that were to, m, con, and wa, and he doesn't really know what it was, but this happened, right? Ivan had some knowledge that he wanted to pass on that he really couldn't because he doesn't have the necessary stuff to do so. And so they get excited about this, right? We get to see that Umataro and Makoto have a weird moment where it's basically like a meet cute where they both realize that the other person is attractive, and then Makoto immediately shuts it down. She's like, fuck this is weird. Umataro is not the right person for this, right? And I think it's pretty funny. She also tells Umataro that Uchinamizu is actually a very cute guy, and he's apparently very well liked by a lot of people. And then we get to see that A106, or Adam, actually knew that Moriya, Makoto's brother, is the Dr. Lolo. But he doesn't tell anyone because he assumes that they all knew. But Uchinamizu has to explicitly tell him, when you find out things that are kind of special, you should tell us anyways, because otherwise they're working on different assumptions, and that's not good for the goals that they have together, right? Then Uchinamizu's grandpa shows up, and he talks about the fact that he found the boy robot, the boy robot that he met when he was a child, or when he was a young man working on robotics, right? So it turns out that grandpa and old man Shirohige, which is the old guy from the beginning of the story that eventually becomes their friend after Adam helps them save his shipment, right? And it turns out that these guys knew each other in some way. Shirohige knew Uchinamizu's grandpa when he was young, and they have a nice interaction with each other. Then we get a flashback to Uchinamizu's grandpa as he's a young man. He's sad and orphaned, but he notices that robots are the future, and so he becomes a robotics designer. It turns out that Shirohige's dad, or maybe his grandpa, was the person that took in Uchinamizu's grandpa and helped them become a roboticist, right? After he had a falling out with his friend, who happens to be the guy that's in charge of Uchinamizu and Umataro's PhD program, right? And later, throughout this youth of Uchinamizu's grandpa, a young boy joined him, and they worked together to create robots, and eventually the town that they lived in had a situation happen. It was kind of a disaster, and they used a robot to save everyone. And then after this boy used this robot to save people, it turns out that the boy had to leave because people were going to start asking questions. And the last thing that he says to Uchinamizu's grandpa before he leaves is, "I'm from the future," and he goes off into the distance and disappears. And so Uchinamizu's grandpa has been looking for a way to find the child since then. And so that's where we kind of get caught up here, and this is the start of the next arc here. So yeah, overall, pretty fun stuff. I really enjoyed it. I think that a lot of this is decompression and conversations about the ending of the previous story and leading into the new story, of course. And, you know, you maybe argue this is necessarily not a separate arc. Maybe this could have been included in the World Robot Battling Competition arc, but I felt that there was a very clear finish in that arc that this doesn't really encompass, that this is a separate portion, right? And so that's why I thought this would be good as its own arc. It's not really all that much, but I still managed to talk about it for like 20 minutes, so it is what it is. But yeah, so in terms of characters here, we get introduced to Uchinamizu's grandpa, who doesn't have a name, he's just Gramps. That's what everyone calls him, so we'll just go with that. I think he is supposed to be the Uchinamizu from the original story, from the original version of Astro Boy, but I don't know his name because I've never read Astro Boy, right? So who knows? The little robot boy that says he's from the future is, of course, Astro Boy or Adam, the real version of Adam. But we don't really know that yet, right? Like, you can infer because that's the point of the story, right? But it's not explicitly told to you, right? And then otherwise, in terms of characters, there really isn't anything too important here besides the potential start of a Makoto and Umataro romance, right? But it is what it is. World building wise, we learned that the robot boy exists. We don't know how, because the technology necessary to create a boy that is so real but also still clearly a robot is like 20 to 30, maybe 50 years ahead of anything that they have now. And so how is it possible that this boy existed like 30 or 40 years in the past when the grandpa was alive, right? And so it's a really interesting conundrum there. And then we learned that Lolo's power suit is special, and we get it explained to us at the end of volume 7, because this is one of those things that this creative team likes to do a lot, which is include sci-fi notes to explain how different things work, right? So we get this whole section here. I don't know if this is available in the English version, but it has a lot of information here in the Spanish edition, right? So it says all of the secrets of Dr. Lolo. It explains the suit and why he dresses the way he does in order to hide it. And then we have this explanation of this thing called the bedroom of Mary, about how there's this concept about like how much is inherent knowledge, how much is truth, and how much is implied, right? Like, if you grew up in a colorless area, and this is Mary's bedroom, right? It's colorless, it's gray, everything's in grayscale. And then you go out into the world where there's color, would you be able to see the color? Would you know what that is, right? It's a really interesting concept. I would assume that you would be able to notice, but you might not know how to express it, right? So very cool. I really enjoy these kind of things that they add in. I think they're fun. And yeah, that's basically it in terms of world building. In terms of artwork and fan service, there's awesome artwork. There's no fan service because there really rarely is a chance for anything fan servicey to happen in these types of manga. But it does sometimes happen, just not in this arc. Rating wise is a 4 out of 5. I think it does everything perfectly, but because there's nothing particularly interesting, I can't give it a 5 out of 5. It didn't really blow my socks off, and so it remains to be a 4 out of 5. And that's it for arc number 6 of Adam the Beginning. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and see you guys later.